Hey everyone, welcome back to Nick 101, or me 101. I'm your host, Nick 101, I guess. And well, happy Memorial Day weekend. And I know that I promised a video of my buddy Josh, who came over for the weekend. I do plan on getting that out soon. I just definitely want to review it, make sure, because we get into it as two army buddies do, and we just want to make sure everything is going to paint us in a good light because he has his business and all that stuff. I have a channel that some mixed people end up seeing, so we don't want to have anything too crazy out there, but that's the problem when you have a friend like that, especially one that you met in a place like the military. Um, you you don't have a filter, and thankfully I think that we kept the cussing to a minimum. We didn't get too political, but at the same time, it's just like, yeah, let's just make sure because you're not thinking about what you have to say. A good friend that's been with you for forever that knows who you really are inside. You can make crass jokes. You can, you can say stuff completely just, and they'll know that you're kidding, and you don't have to like worry about censoring yourself or apologizing afterwards. And anytime that we get together, that's how it is. We get each other, we vibe pretty well, and so it's something where I was kind of focused on the fact that we were recording for the podcast, but at the same time, I kind of just let him talk and let the conversation go where it might. And yeah. So I'm gonna review it. I'm gonna have it out soon, but for right now, here's just a placeholder video, which once again, I'm kind of falling off of the bandwagon for having it out at a specific day. But technically, this is this week's Monday, since most people. That's the great thing, by the way, is I never really took it personal. I've always worked retail, so it's fine that I normally never got Memorial Day off. That Memorial Day is obviously a big day for retail, so most retail places don't have it off, and that's fine. That's what I signed up for, going into retail. But now my new job actually has it off, and it was really nice. And you know, it's probably the first Monday. No, I'm sorry, it is the first Monday that I've been able to have it off since I started the job, since it's Monday through Friday. So that was really cool, actually having a weekday off. Not that I took advantage of it or anything. I don't know what part of the world you're from, but as always, you have a nice long extended weekend. And for all 3 days, it's miserable, rainy, and you kind of have to keep stuff indoors. And then now that it's Tuesday and we all have to go back to work, it is the most glorious day. Not too hot, nice and sunny, but not, just the sun beating down on you. Just the perfect outdoor day where kayaking, fishing, shooting, any of that stuff would have just been absolutely glorious. If I was a golfer, this would have been a great golf day. And of course, you're stuck at work, so that's just the fate of the weather gods, I guess. And it is what it is. That's the cool thing. If you are friends like we are. I joked about it earlier, but it was like, hey, sorry, we're not gonna be able to do as much stuff. It looks like the weather's not as good. But to be honest, when him and I are together, we could literally do we could be stuck in an elevator, and there's some people that you could get stuck in an elevator with, and it's an absolute nightmare. Whereas with him, it's just like, well, I guess we have more time to talk till they come to fix it. So that was really nice, and just a good chill. Just kind of recharge the batteries, joke around, play some Cards Against Humanity. Just that kind of fun weekend. And oh, so for the video, I regret it afterwards, but in the background, because usually I record these when my girl Steph is not here, and that was her in the background, and I didn't give a shout out to like, hey, that's Steph's voice in the background, by the way. We just kind of kept going with it, so shout out to Steph. Sorry about that. But yeah, so it was a good time, and that's what I love about Lilu, because obviously, come on, this is me, 101. I'm surprised it took this long for me to start talking about my dog. But Lulu's an interesting dog. So I don't know if it's because of just having to be isolated for a full year, but she's taken upon anytime somebody's at the door, she barks her fool head off. You let him in, and even if it's somebody that she recognizes, like my buddy Tim down the street, who we get to see for a hot minute, which is awesome as well. But she knows Tim. She knows exactly who he is, what he looks like, what he sounds like. And even though he's inside the house and he's going, Lilu, hi, what? she gets into barking mode and she can't turn it off for like the first couple minutes. And what's hilarious is that once that's over with, then you're now part of the family. Like you could stay over. You could leave, come back again. As long as it's within a certain amount of time, and she's just like, "Oh yeah, no, you've always been here," and it's great. She's very accommodating. I think she'd be a really good foster dog because I think that she'd be like, at first really interested in whoever this new dog is in the family, and then just after a while be like, yeah, okay. And then once the dog's gone, she'll just be like, check a couple of rooms for a few days. It's like, hey, they coming back or what's going on there? And then just be like, all right, I guess that that there's not the other dog there anymore. So she's really kind of go with the flow when it comes to that, except for the initial greeting. But that was one thing that was kind of funny. So Josh is already here, and then Tim visits, and she doesn't do her usual barking thing. I think she got it all out on Josh. And then when it's time for Josh to go, he packs his bags. He goes down to the car, puts all the stuff in the car. It takes him a little bit because he's organized and making sure he has everything. And then he starts the car to come back up and say goodbye to us. Comes up the stairs, and then Lulu barks her full head off at him all over again. And it was funny because my girl says like, oh, maybe it's him. He has a hat on. Maybe it's the hat. And I was just like, I'm pretty sure she heard the car start, and she's kind of like, hey, no. Now that I know you love you and you're part of the family, don't you go anywhere without me? So I think that might have been it. It's always fun speculating, what dogs thinking in their heads and stuff. But you know, couldn't ask for more chill time. I wish it had been longer, as we always do. But it's nuts how time gets away from you. So it had actually been over 2 years. He let me know that we had actually seen each other in person. And I thought, well, I know for a year at least for sure, because of the whole pandy. But I didn't realize it had been 2 full years. And that's kind of how time gets away with you when you become an adult. You have a job, a family, responsibilities, and you don't see each other as often. But what's really cool is when you have that handful of friends that it's been a year, 2 years, 10 years even, and when you get together, it's just like, oh, no time is actually passed as far as how we interact with each other. We just have a little bit more of so what you've been up to if we don't follow each other on social media. It's just like so what you've been up to. Well, this, and that kind of sums up to 10 years. So yeah, how about you? It's awesome having those types of friends, which you really only get a handful of in life. So cherish them. Make sure not to uh, let any beefs fester into a not talking for a spell. There's a couple of people I can think of that kind of wish I didn't let that happen, and hopefully, who knows, maybe years down the road, because I'm obviously. I pretty much, I think I've already apologized in one of my podcasts that it's like, I apologize to anybody that knew me in my 20s. That was probably the worst representation of me. That's on par as far as the worst representation of me as when I was a kid. Like kids, don't start off great. They have a mine phase, like this is mine, that's mine. They have a very selfish, narcissistic phase that they eventually, learn empathy and get over. Whether it be through, pets or just constant exposure to other people, hurting and then being hurt and then realizing what that feels like. But yeah, and then when you're in your 20s and hormones raging, you're figuring things out. You're imbibing in substances that you previously hadn't imbibed in, and they change your makeup, which is always weird. There's always that endless debate of like, if somebody's drunk and then they act like kind of a dink, and then it's like, well, did he always have that dink in him and the alcohol's bringing it out, or does literally his brain chemistry change to dink behavior once there's alcohol in him? And that's just maybe one for the ages, because I don't know. I'm not a biologist or a chemist or any of the other ists that might know more than I do on the subject. But um, and that was nice too. I'm not shy about it. I definitely at at times have gotten more heavily into drinking than I should. Right now at this moment is not really an exception. I've definitely go pretty hard in the paint if I'm not paying attention to myself. And so that was one cool thing that when he came over is we kind of just kept an eye on each other and made sure that we didn't have too many back to back. And so I think all three of us, I'd say four, but I don't give stuff to the dog. She's never seemed to be much interested in it anyway. There's some dogs that I've seen where it's just like you accidentally spill a bit of alcohol and the dog immediately goes over and starts lapping it up. And Lord knows I've spilled the wine glass so many times. That's why it's like almost patented that I have the plastic one that I drink out of on occasion when you're watching this. anytime that we've spilled the the wine, she has no interest in it whatsoever. She's not a alcoholic dog, and honestly, I really hate the people that do that. I mean, the dog having the occasional lap up is obviously not going to hurt them, but I just hear horror stories of there was this guy talking. There was this guy talking on probably Reddit, most likely, where there are these guys that they had a dog that they would give a beer a day, and the dog would act drunk, and they'd think it was funny. And then the dog slowly got a tolerance to it, so they're like, well, the dog doesn't get drunk anymore, so let's just put it down. And those are the two options. We have a dog that we can get drunk and it's funny, or it's not worth the food, and we're going to put it down. So this guy was like, look, I'll save you a bullet. And so he took the dog, and the dog was literally such an alcoholic that if he had just, stopped giving the dog alcohol, the dog would have died from withdrawals anyway. So he had to wean the dog slowly off, and then, the post was about like, hey, we're celebrating our first day sober, and like the wild ride that it was to get to the dog to that point. So obviously I'd never let it get that bad, but it's always just kind of turned me off of like, oh, let's people that like blow hits of weed in the dog's face, or like that kind of stuff. It's just like, honestly, the dog seems to be having a blast at life with just a ball. I mean that ball seems to get them higher than any stuff that we imbibe in might. So let the dog be the dog. So yeah, I never really got into that, but I feel like the three of us, Lilu excluded, definitely had a great time, but not too great of a time, if that makes sense. And yeah, that's how it really should go. And it's just so funny because yeah, I guess when you grow up and you have your 20s and you go hard and you have some wild and crazy stories. I mean, that's great. You kind of have to you know go hard to figure out where the line is, and then when you get older, remember that and be embarrassed by it, and try not to go over that again. And so I guess maybe in the back of my head I was worried that, oh, he's here, and we used to go crazy back in the day, so is that going to reignite the beast of like let's go shot for shot, let's play drinking games, let's do beer pong and all that stuff. And I guess we could have easily done beer pong without just using water, but I don't even know. I didn't even think of that. That was kind of a waste opportunity. That would have been kind of a nice trip down nostalgia lane, but it didn't even occur to us. That's the thing. So yeah, no, it was actually like a real decent time, and it's cool to be able to do that and be like, oh, like it wasn't the alcohol that made it a fun time. It was surrounding yourself with cool people that can can hold a conversation, keep things fun, but harmless. Like and I mentioned it in the episode, but just going to the store with a guy like Josh is a blast because like he'll start up conversations with random people, and he'll like it's the most amazing thing to watch because like he'll do it in a very teasing way, but he always gets away with it because I mean I think that there's just something about him that you can just tell like none of this is coming from a place of malice. Like I don't think he's ever like said, oh hey, but and then somebody being like, what the hell did you say? Like I don't know why, but he gets away with it never being taken that way. So, but anyway, so now it's past Memorial Day weekend. What the heck else is coming up? I think Father's Day is soon. I keep seeing ads for it, so it's got to be. I think that Father's Day is probably coming up. There's always one after the other. It's like there's just oh, there's Christmas. Oh, now it's New Year's. Oh, now it's Valentine's Day. Oh, there's something for every month. Oh, it is Gay Pride Month though, so that's cool. Shout out to, I mean, having a whole month. But I don't. I like taking pride in being gay. I just don't like the commercials, the companies and the products where they're just like oh, it's June again. All right, well we got to slap a rainbow on our logo. All the stuff that it's obvious that it's just like either a cash grab or it's well, we don't want to look like we're not doing it. And I mean I'm sorry, but screw places like I mean they're never going to be a sponsor, but screw places like Chick-fil-A for being against that kind of stuff. But at the same time, you almost kind of have to respect the fact that I mean, as far as I know, they're pretty not shy about it. They're just kind of like, well, that's our brand. We, don't work on Sundays because we're religious, and we, take a lot of the Bible very literally. And that's something that I hate, is that literally there is nothing in the Bible against being gay. I mean, there really isn't. If you want to bring up Sodom and Gomorrah, I mean, again, I'm no Bible expert. I was never really religious, but I mean, if you want to bring up Sodom and Gomorrah, that's literally because they wanted to rape a bunch of angels. It had nothing to do with the fact that the angels were guys or whatever. I mean, that if you read it, that's literally what it's talking about. These people wanted to rape angels. I mean, that you know that's what it was about. So, you know, anyway, even if it did say that, it's just like, yeah, needs updating because it's not right. But and I just love seeing stuff like whether you're a fan of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia or not. Um, I think Glenn Howerton had a really good idea where he made sure to have his character's name not be the same first name. So Charlie Day has his character named Charlie. Mac is technically a nickname of his name. And so Glenn just made sure to go completely out of left field, not have it even sound like Glenn, because his character is such a piece of crap. And I mean, the whole show is about the characters being such pieces of crap, and it's hilarious, and it's well written, well acted, and you can genuinely believe that these are pieces of filth, but clearly they're not in real life. And I just think that it's so funny where it's like, I remember that and I know that in my heart, but every once in a while it is jarring when all of a sudden you see the whole cast dressed up head to toe in like, rainbow stuff, like big poop eating grins across their face, having a blast, supporting the cause. And, obviously that's something that their characters in the show would never do unless it was for profit. And, they figured out some way to exploit it. But that would literally be the only thing that they were okay with. It's like, can we get money from it? Other than that, they would not be throwing on rainbows just to help support a cause. They would only do it to help get money from supporting the cause. Um, Although I don't know. Now that they've had, I kind of struggle, keeping up with certain shows, especially if it's been long enough, because there's always so many brand new ones coming out that it's like, oh shoot, that's right, that show's still going on. It's on season what now? Oh my god, that means I missed like 2 full seasons. So some of them that come to mind, like Family Guy was the biggest show for me in a long time, and it's been a while. I mean, Simpsons especially, like that one was like my mom wouldn't even let me watch it when I was a kid. And now it's been a real hot minute. I mean, the fact that they were able to stay alive, considering like how shows like Family Guy and South Park, like even more push the edge of the envelope, shows that have come out since, and they kept going, and that's awesome. But yeah, unfortunately, like when I got more into Family Guy, Simpsons kind of went off the wayside. So I haven't seen It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I do remember that one of the episodes that Mac did admit that he was gay, for It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia reasons, not because he was like, oh, you know what, I've been struggling with this for a long time, I'm gay. Instead, he was just like, wait a minute, I could have. I'm pretty sure I'm saying this right. It's like, oh, I could have this money if I say I'm gay. Oh, then I'm gay. No, you all know it. You all have been saying it forever. So, it wasn't even for a good reason, because It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. But so I don't know. I mean, they most likely, more likely than not, have had a gay pride episode or two that either I haven't caught yet, or it was so far back that I completely am forgetting about it. But it's just one of those things where separating the actor from the craft has always been this double-edged sword, where it's like, you know, these people that play villains, that they play them so well that you love to hate them, and the poor people actually like get hate mail, because I don't know why people do that if they genuinely can't separate the the man from the character, like with the Falcon and Winter Soldier that recently came out, with the new Captain America guy, who is played being a douche so well that he actually got like death threats, and it's just hilarious, because it's just like, okay, you do know that he doesn't actually have Captain's Shield. You do realize that he isn't actually working with the military. That he's behind the camera. This is a closed set. So so it's a double-edged sword. So it's like I hate when people that play villains, or just really crappy people, and they do it so well that it's assumed that they're that way in real life. And then there's the other edge of the sword, where it's just like up until a certain moment, that the characters and the off-screen persona that they projected was always a nice one, and then you find out deep, dark, dirty secrets from their past, and you're like, oh, that person's a piece of crap, and yeah, if it's bad enough, then they shouldn't work again. But now there's these great things that they've created, and are you still allowed to enjoy them? I mean, should all of their work be like pulled now that it's just like, oh well, there was uh, you know, um, molesting or rape or just even just general poopiness all around. Um, if it was like like an award-winning movie, or if it was just like a charts-topping song, should you? I mean, morally, should you still listen or watch, in spite of the fact that that person made it, and that person was a piece of crap during that time that they were making it? And it's just like that 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 you saw may very well have been at the exact same time that some of that crappiness was going on. And now knowing that, should you be, well, in that case, I'm never going to watch another one of his movies, or, well, in that case, I'll never play another one of his songs. I mean, as an example, it's like, um, you know, Michael Jackson, like, let's just go ahead and, assume all the allegations are true about Michael Jackson, and now you go into a store, and his song is on the store's, like, fake radio station. I mean, now what? Okay, now you didn't, you know, download it on iTunes. You didn't turn to it on your radio, but now you're listening to it. Do you have a right to, be offended? Ask for that song to be taken down off the store's, like out of the store's playlist? Because that is a thing you can do. You can actually, like, take, at least in places that I've worked, you can actually take certain songs out of the succession. And is that one that should be done? Because it's like, whether or not morally it's good or bad, you have to admit that it's a catchy tune. Obviously it was number one on the billboards for so long and that kind of stuff. So I don't know. It's just an interesting thing to struggle with. Where I don't know what answer, if there even is a right answer. I mean, that's one of the things that I love, absolutely love about this podcast I'm listening to called Taste Buds. Brilliant, brilliant concept. If you haven't seen it, check it out. And shout out Silent Joe, but they have this brilliant idea where it's just like, okay, um, steak and cheese versus chicken parm sub. Now they throw up it on Twitter, so people are live tweeting during the whole time that they're having the argument, and so they're all voting for one or the other. Like the amount of votes are going up like this the whole time they're debating. They don't look at the screen. They get into it where it's just like, like, oh my god, like steak and cheese, it's so simple ingredients, it's impossible to screw up. I've had a bad chicken parm before, and then it was just like, yeah, but I've had some bad steak and cheese, and those ones don't compare to the bad parms. And so they go on the debate, and then they see the poll at the end, and they see who won, and nothing's gained, nothing's lost, and it will always be controversial because everybody's tastes differ. So, there's always going to be somebody that prefers a steak and cheese over a chicken parm. There's going to be people like me that, I might have at one time liked the chicken parm more. Once I realized that I was highly reactive to tomatoes and I kind of cut those out of my diet, well, there's no debate now. I mean, I can't do a chicken parm because of the tomato sauce. So it's always going to be steak and cheese for me. And so what I love, though, is just like, everyone's always going to have an opinion on food. And that's all it's going to be, is an opinion, because everybody's tastes work different. Everybody was raised with different palates. Everybody's taste buds evolve every 7 years. I've heard that you have the brand new set of cells, so it's actually technically not the same taste buds you had growing up as a kid. I used to hate bananas. I like them again. At one point, I'd had so much Kraft mac and cheese and so much peanut butter and jelly sandwiches growing up as a kid that I couldn't stand to look at them for 10 years, and now I'm back into liking them. So it's just a great idea to, have a podcast. I know I went off on a tangent. I'm trying to wrap up, but have a podcast like that, because it's like, well, there will always be opinions. There will, on one side or the other when it comes to food. Nobody's really right or wrong, and at the end of the day, like, the only thing that happens is one has bragging rights, and the other one, says, it's just like, I still love you too. Boom, ended the episode. It's funny, it's great. So I'd say that there's probably some arguments about morality and stuff that are probably pretty cut and dry. Did you rape? You're wrong. Nothing to debate about that. Nothing at all. Now, when it comes to like the gray areas where it's just like, okay, well, you know, this exists. This person's not cool. The thing that exists is great though, and they did make it, and they did genuinely do a good job with it. So, you know, are we morally obligated to not do it anymore? Some people would say, oh, absolutely no. Like you, if anything, you know, they got away with it for so long because they were putting that stuff out. So because you're still enjoying it and watching it, you know, you're part of the problem. Why there's always still going to be people that get away with that in the business for probably years to come. Still, like we're not out of the woods yet. You know, I mean, the Me Too movement happened. I'm very glad that it did. It definitely shined a light on, you know, some of the dark, seedy parts of, you know, the business. But you know, it isn't like that stuff stopped overnight because one person got caught and you know, went to jail. That's not how it works at all. And you know, do I have to stop watching every movie until I know for sure that none of them are hiring based on sexual favors? You know, for sure, like it's in writing, and you know, every single person involved on the set, you know, has you know, like signed an affidavit and gone on interviews saying absolutely nothing under the table was happening here. You know, nobody got, you know, yelled at on set or mistreated badly. I mean, that's something that I hate hearing. I mean, like, regardless of whether you think that, see, I mean, there's so many of them. Like, so you get The Shining, where Stanley Kubrick was super mean to the actress so that he could get a terrified performance out of her, you know, and, um, you know, she did a good job being terrified. Now, is that justifiable where it's like she wouldn't have put out that good performance, the movie wouldn't have been as well? That, you know, she needed to get to that point. I mean, and if afterwards she's just like, okay, it sucked while it was happening, but now that I see it on screen, you're absolutely right. I wouldn't have been like that unless you had. So thank you. Or if she looks at it afterwards and it was just like, that's giving PTSD, remembering how I was treated, and that should never be what the point that you have to go to, in order to, you know, get such a performance. So another one would be Man on the Moon. Jim Carrey went very method with playing Andy Kaufman, and arguably he was kind of a pain in the butt on set. And when you look at the performance, he is so Andy Kaufman that had he not been like literally channeling him and being kind of a you know, dick, like even when the cameras are off, he was still in that mode. So, you know, arguably the performance would not have been anywhere near what we got if he had just played it as a character, and instead he became the character. So, you know, was it worth the people getting stressed out on set for that to be now a final, you know, thing? I'm pretty sure that pretty much anybody that was involved with it, with him at least, you know, is like, you know, forgiven, forgotten, water under the bridge. That one should be okay. But then, you know, like I said, like I don't know how the actress in The Shining was, you know, feels about it, and if she feels a certain way about it, then should that still, you know, be cool if that movie's out? You know, that's something, you know, that I wonder about in the back of my head, but it's just like I don't know the answer. I, you know, once it gets to a certain point, I don't see what me watching or not watching it, you know, would do, and so I do try to, you know, look at it as it was intended, where it's just like I'm watching this character, this storyline, this universe, and yeah, if the person's face comes on screen, um, you know, I can't help but think that, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like I don't ever want to forget and then be wooed again just because somebody's, you know, performance is really good. That, oh, you're a piece of crap, and then I, like, you know, watch movies and then they play these great characters, and then I start to forget that they're not the character, they're actually a piece of crap, and then, you know, then they get to start working again, and you know what I mean. So it's like, you know, some of them, I don't know that they did a bad enough thing that they needed to stop working, and so if they get back into the biz, I'm rooting for them. But others, it's like, yeah, I never want to forget that. So I mean, maybe it's almost a good thing to watch the occasional movie, remember it's just like, oh, who is that? Oh, yeah, yeah, that's you know, yeah, blah blah blah. You know, he you know, was fondling little boys. Okay, that's right. Good movie though, you know. But so I don't know. It's it just stinks. You know, it stinks that it seems like the um, the type of, because this isn't true for everyone. So it's like I don't want any rich people or famous actors or actresses to get upset at me, but it does seem like the kind of mind that goes all out and makes it like really big in any area, like whether it's you accumulate enough money to become a millionaire or billionaire, whether you're like an amazingly talented actor, director, whatever. It just seems like if you have that drive to get that far ahead in that kind of field, that you're kind of wired for. It's like, well, I don't know. It seems it's hard for me to get into the mind space because it doesn't make any sense to me. But it's almost like, you know, maybe it's like, well, if you're this big famous actor, that it's just like you have women literally throwing themselves at your feet, like like the most beautiful woman that you've ever met, and it's just like, well, I mean, it's not even a challenge anymore. But this you know young one or whatever, it's like there's like some excitement, some danger. I'm not sure if that's what it is. Like I can't get an adrenaline rush anymore unless like with Tom Cruise, there's got to be some reason like why he insists on doing all the stunts, not just because like how cool they look, but he's just like I literally am Tom Cruise. Like I need to be strapped to the side of a plane in order to feel like any excitement. Maybe that's where it gets to. And hey, hopefully Tom Cruise is not doing any diddling, and that's how he's getting his Joneses off. But that seems like a dangerous path to go down too. I don't know. So yeah, it just stinks because it's like you find out about quite a few of the big names and stuff that have done great things. Almost I don't think that there's ever been a single one that has gone completely like you haven't found out at least one little deeper dark thing about him. I mean, I think some of our favorite earliest presidents did own slaves. Um, you know, Quite a few huge producers, directors, actors, did do awful things to people that were too young or just I don't know, like once you have enough like sway, it's like even if it's not somebody that's young, arguably you're still pretty influential, which Louis C.K. got a lesson from. I don't know that necessarily Louis should have been canceled because of it, and I do think that he does eventually deserve to come back, but I wasn't there in the room, so I obviously like have no say in it. It's just like from what I've been presented, I mean, he seems you know remorseful. It doesn't seem like he did anything like have a door that locked the office like supposedly some others did. So I don't know. But again, that's where it gets like really kind of muddy is like when it's getting close to the gray area stuff, and then even when it's unquestionable, where it's just like, oh no, he raped, so the rapist obviously straight to jail. All right, but what about the progress that they left behind? It's like I don't know. I mean, I heard that Bill Cosby like paid for the PA system that Martin Luther King did his famous "I Have a Dream" speech, and had he been caught before that with drug and women and stuff, and then that PA may not have ever happened, the speech may not have ever happened, yada yada yada, like um, butterfly effect, throughout time. So you know, it's like, would I have loved for him to have been caught before doing that to all those women? Yes, I would have loved for that to never have to have been a thing anyway. Um, that doesn't mean that I don't want Martin Luther King Jr. to have a PA system. I would have hoped that he would have been able to get it, through other means, but it's just like that's the whole kind of thing where it's like, I mean, awful stuff is awful, but um, Sherlock, the Benedict Cumberbatch one, because he's a high functioning sociopath, so he can look at it, with a completely black and white thing. So it was hilarious seeing he was just like best man, and it's actually Watson trying to ask him to be his best man, but he doesn't get it. At first, he was goes the yada yada garroter. He was like, what? He was like, best person I knew. He was just like he opened up like multiple hospitals, donated millions to charities. He is responsible for like this many people getting rescued from you know from like slave trade and all this stuff. Sure, there was the occasional garroting. Apparently this was a murderer that garroted people with piano wire. He was like, sure, there's the occasional garroting. Maybe like a handful, 3 or 4. But based on the amount of lives that he saved, he was just like, I think it kind of evens out that he, was one of the best people I know. Like, he actually saved, by my count, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of lives, and then he snuffed out, 2 or 3. Yeah, it evens out, and it's like, well, no, obviously from somebody who is not a sociopath and has morals, um, you know, uh, you know, I guess it's a little different. Like, if you're young, you're in a gang, you kill somebody, you do your time, you get out, and then you save a bunch of people, and then, at the end of your life, you know, should you be considered a good person? And yes, arguably, you know, um, you're not the same person that you were, at that young age, and if you paid your time, if like you reformed yourself, then arguably, yes, you should be considered a good person, and if there is a heaven, you should get into it. Um, you know, so it's just that weird thing where it's just like, are we literally the scales of justice? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, literally the scales of justice where it's just like, like you helped out like a million people. Oh, you killed 3 people. Are we still higher in the morality thing, or once you've killed one person, well, you're a menace. You'll probably do it again, so you should never be allowed on the streets ever. Death penalty. There you go. No chance of rehabilitation. That's not how you're built different. So that's never no. So that's why I thank God that I don't make the laws. I've never been selected for jury duty. I don't know. You know, I I always go back and forth between it's like if I ever did get jury duty, would I want to do my part and help be part of a fair trial because obviously it's a lot fairer than say Judge Dredd days where it's judge, jury, and executioner all in the same person. Because what if they perceive the thing wrong? And so you need a lot of perspectives to debate about it. But I don't know if I would try and get out of jury duty or if I would be happy and proud to be part of that system because as flawed as it may be, it's still better than not having that in place. So I don't know. I don't because I wrestle about this all the time. I feel like I would have a hard time convicting anybody unless literally like I'm watching a video of them doing it, and I have this expert videographer that can guarantee me 100% that it's not a deep fake because now even videos we can't trust because there's now deep fakes and stuff where it's like even it's actually outside of the uncanny valley at this point where it looks like freaking Tom Cruise just to use as an example like he's been in so much stuff that I think his has been done quite a bit where I think it was like some guy that was just like either painting or in construction. It was obviously clearly not him, but the face, like from every angle, like you couldn't see where the seam was. It was insane, like just, and it's scary, because that's like one of those things where, you know, um, like let's say that there's somebody that's trying to fight the system, and like like Snowden. Back in the day, Snowden, when he exposed that, I mean, if they had deepfakes, then they easily could have just been like, well, here's Snowden, raping a little kid, and it wouldn't be him, but like they managed to get enough footage of him that like it looks completely 100% like him. You wouldn't be able to tell. You could zoom in as much as you want to. You don't see even a single blur. I mean, it's scary that that the technology has come to that point. Josh and I get into it a little bit with we talk about simulation theory, but he was talking about like using the VR glasses and stuff, and who knows? I mean, that's enough of the simulation stuff. We went into it a little bit too long. Oh, what was hilarious too is that like I could talk to him forever. So we're talking. We covered like about 80 topics, and then I was just like, well, I don't want to take up too much of your time because I know you're here to chill more than to for me to pimp you out on my podcast to have a decent episode and maybe get some numbers up. So he was just like, no, it's all good. And he was like, what time did we start? And so I looked and I thought that we had started at like noontime, and I looked and it was like 1:17. So I was just like, oh yeah, we got over an hour. And then I stopped it and I double checked and it was only 37 minutes. So it's a shorter episode. We're probably gonna be talking a mile a minute. I mean, hey, maybe it's an hour because you have to rewind it and rewatch it because of just how much crap you missed out on. I don't know, but that episode's coming soon. Um, Unfortunately, he still got the rough edits. We had such a blast that the one thing that he was going to do when he came over was to show me how to do some editing software because I'd rather just hear it from somebody that has done all the research, can just give you the bullet points, rather than go on somebody else's YouTube channel and learn it that way. But yeah, I guess if you know if it takes long enough, then I'll probably just eventually get around to doing it myself. That'll probably be once I've caught up a little bit on the episodes because obviously Monday's passed and I didn't have this out, so hopefully I'm gonna get that out today. I did that last time too. I was just like, all right, you're getting it a day late. I loaded up to YouTube. I have such a crappy old laptop. Like honestly, like if you ever figure out where I live and you decide that you want to like break in and raid the place, like you're gonna be getting the oldest crappiest laptop that you still can't believe reboots. I mean, you're gonna be getting like hand me down lamps. You know, uh, fridge that came with the plate. You know what I mean? Like it's, I live very modestly, and unfortunately, when it comes to the equipment that shows, the audio for the webcam, died, and so now you have to hear every time I'm, you know, clicking on that, and it's got to be a nightmare. And I do apologize. And I should just invest in a lavalier mic and stuff, but I mean, I'm going to have to eventually if I start doing, videos where I'm up and moving about. So, but for these ones, I'm literally just talking to a blue light, so it is what it is. But yeah, what was fun though is I get to finally show them. I don't know if anybody out there watching is like really into weird movies and stuff. But one of the funnest, weirdest ones out there is John dies at the end, and the character John always reminds me of Josh. Not necessarily Josh today, but Josh, like back in his party animal days, and so um, I had a blast being able to show that to him for the first time. It was actually Steph's idea because she was just like, "Have you seen John Dies at the End?" Because it's literally a movie that's based off of one of my favorite books. It's not his actual name; it's his pen name, but David Wong. I think his name's Peter somebody. He used to work for Crack Magazine, and he did the same thing as The Martian. So if you're familiar with The Martian, because I think more people have seen that than John Dies at the End, but The Martian was literally written. It was like a new chapter a month. He would put each chapter out, each month, and so he basically would just try and write himself into okay, now this goes wrong, and then this is the way that he fixes it. And so the only three things that didn't fail are because he couldn't figure out a way to write around the Martian surviving it. Eventually, he wraps it up. Spoilers. The Martian um, goes home, and he tidied it up, made it a book. The book became a movie, and so it was a very similar experience that happened here. In fact, he named it John Dies at the End because he wanted people to keep tuning in each month to see if John did in fact die at the end. And no spoilers on this one. That one I'm not going to tell you if John does or does not die at the end. He dies in the middle, but I'm not going to tell you if he dies at the end at all. Sorry, I forget to say spoilers, but it's just like that. Honestly, with that movie, there's no real such thing as spoilers. They did a great job in the movie trying to keep it somewhat coherent because it's already a sprawling, crazy book as it is, and they had to cut out so much segments because it would have been way out of the budget. But I think that they stayed pretty faithful to the humor of it. And the opening scene is the same as the opening of the book. If you read the opening, if you watch the opening scene, or if you read the opening of the book, and you enjoy that very first 2 minutes, then you're gonna love the whole rest of it. It's such a great thing. All right, screw it. Because I'm all about unpaid promotion. I mean, Josh Ledger, shout out Sandy Customs. People are already sick of hearing that. So, John dies at the end. The pen name is David Wong, and it basically, I'm going to butcher it because this is not a good enough, way to do it. But it starts with a philosophical question for you. So, let's say you have an axe and you're using it to chop off a guy's head. Don't worry, he was already dead. But despite the 8 bullet holes that you put in him, you're still pretty sure that he's going to about to get up and walk around. So just to be safe, you're chopping off his head. While you do so, the handle breaks. So you go to the store, explaining away the stains as barbecue sauce, get a new handle, and then the axe sits unneeded for 6 months or whatever, until all of a sudden some big wiggly slimy bug thing comes out of the sink and tries to face hug you like from Alien. So you grab the axe, you chop the weird bug thing to death, and while you're doing so, you hit the cutting board or whatever. Anyway, you somehow manage to get a chip in the axe head. So you bring it back to the store, you get a replacement head, and then you come back from the store, you open the door, and then standing there in your house is the guy that you killed. His head's back on. What looks like weed whacker wire. Keeping it on. And so he's clearly like some kind of zombie thing, and so he looks at the axe and he goes, "That's the axe that slayed me." Now is he right? I mean, genius. It's it is the best introduction of a book I've ever seen because it's going to show you the humor where they're taking the ship that slowly over the course of its life each board has been replaced was still the same ship as it when you started out with. And then also showing you that it's like, oh, there's going to be a lot of monsters and blood and guts and zaniness, but it's all going to be with the it's going to be dark, but it's going to be light at the same time. It's just this wonderful blend of like horror and comedy. And if you're into that, then you definitely would be into that book or movie. So John Dies at the End, one of my faves, and a great example of how weird I can get, but still stay sane. Sometimes I feel like reading or watching the weirdest stuff out there almost helps me keep my sanity because, first of all, I love just how weird and wild, both in real life and both on paper, people can get. I kind of prefer the fiction more than the paper because, if it's a really weird and wild thing, like, war movies, super serial killers, it's like, there's always that part of me where it's just like, entertaining, but it sucks that those real people in real life had to die. So when it's fake people and it's just like, that whoever's creating it is just trying to get as absolutely crazy as you can. I mean, for example, like, I hated the first time I saw it, but the more that I think about it, the more I do enjoy the fact that Crank 2 just didn't give a flying F. There was Crank, and that was a pretty decent action movie. It was obviously over the top, but it was still like, sort of within the realm of sanity. But then Crank 2, they were like, well, that worked, and this time we're guaranteed the sequel, so we're not pulling out any stops, and it gets into some wild places. So wild that at first I didn't really care for the movie because I was still kind of like a little too invested in the characters. I was thinking of them as somehow still kind of people, but then once I realized just how ridiculously far the second movie went, and that it's like, okay, these aren't even people anymore. These are like definitely characters and caricatures. And so then once you turn your mind off and you just let go of any empathy or desire for a cohesive storyline, and then just enjoy that they had the gonads to put that on screen, then yeah, I enjoyed it. Oh my God, where am I going with this? I mean, uh, yeah, I love wild stuff. I don't particularly care for people doing wild stuff in real life. Where do you draw the line morally? Where do you take a stand? Where do you stand outside with pickets and boycott a movie? Um, you know, where, you know, how far in the system can you go as far as punishment goes? I mean, like, you know, all I'm going to say politically on the subject is that, we used to have slaves, we don't anymore. Oh, wait, we do. They're called prisoners, and the whole way the prison system's run needs to be just completely retooled. They claim it's supposed to be for rehabilitation. It's not. In fact, it's almost impossible to get a job once you're out with that on your record. They're used for pretty much free, the equivalent of free labor. I'm pretty sure that they get like what, like a dime a day for working like a full-time job. It's slavery. Yes, these are bad people that deserve to be punished, but at the same time, we're they're profiting off of it. So it's very literally slavery. It's like it should be punished. Now I'm done. I'm done being political. I don't know. Let's try and end it on a good note because I always there's so much that's annoying in the world. So like why not focus on the positives? Um, again, depending on which region you're in, summer's coming. That could be a good thing. If you're in places that's usually cold, and that could be a bad thing if you're in places that's usually hot. So, in a place where it's typically cold, I'm looking forward to being able to get out there more. And, I would like the days, whoever makes the weather, if they can hear me, I'd like the days to start, syncing up a little bit more with days that I have off, which would be nice. But that's what I love about today's day and age. It's just like you get your shows, you get your card games, you get vehicles that can transport awesome friends, to your humble abode, so you can have a fun time even if you weren't able to leave the house. So yeah, there's a lot of negative stuff that you can focus on. There's a lot of evil out in the world, but it'll drive you crazy if that's all you think about. So I try to always make it a mix of the good with the bad. So yeah, good thing is that I still got people that want to talk to me, actually see my ugly mug. They appreciate my company, and that that I grew up poor, not broke. I never was starved, but I definitely was a skinny kid because the lack of options, and I was a very picky kid. It's so ironic that you could grow up with almost no food options and then still be considered a picky kid. But obviously, um, you know, my parents did the best they could. I never was without a meal. It might not have been a meal that I wanted, but isn't that how kids go? It's just like, no, you spent hours slaving over a stove, and I want mac and cheese, and it's just like, all right, you ungrateful little. So and then obviously when I was in my 20s, just starting out, it's just like, oh yeah, I felt like I had to move into a new apartment like every 6 months because I couldn't. I needed a cheaper place, or it wasn't working out because I did go to too cheap of a place, and you always pay for it when you do that. So it's nice to finally be comfortable enough where it's like, dude, yeah, I still try to be as humble as I can with my purchases. I mostly don't buy clothes for myself. I wait for that to be a Christmas or a birthday present. I usually spend it on food and gas and stuff, but it's like, yeah, I saved up enough to have a kayak, and you know, I can. I'm a grown man. It's like anytime I have some time off, if weather permitting, and even if the weather isn't permitting, I'm a grown up. I could actually go out in the most miserable, rainy day. If I had that strong enough of a desire to go kayaking, I absolutely could. And so, I appreciate that now, where it's just like, hey, if I really want something, I used to be a huge gamer, back in the day, and now it's to the point where it's just like, look, if you really, 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 really want to go back down that rabbit hole and get yourself a PS5, I'd have to save for it, but I could do it, and that's an awesome place to be in. And I know that not everybody is in that place, so I'm, pleased to those people. I'm not trying to brag. I know there's people that are better off than me, and you know what? Honestly, that good for you. And if you worked hard to get it, you're not just some trust fund kid, then then you deserve it. Spend it on superfluous stuff that isn't harming anybody else, please. Um, I'm happy at the moment, that I can, live somewhat comfortably. Again, sorry for the people that can't. Hope it gets better for you. But, I feel like sometimes it takes a major near-death experience or accident or somebody close to you getting sick before you appreciate where it's just like, look, it wasn't so bad. Back when I was miserable, it's just like, oh, it rained on the weekend. And, then your friend gets cancer. It's like, heaven forbid, knock on wood. Geez, why put that out in the universe, Nick? But, I feel like it takes something bad for us to usually appreciate the good. That's almost always the case. And so I think it's kind of interesting that I actually had a great weekend. And somehow it's making me appreciate the decent. I had a great weekend, and it's making me appreciate the decent that's going on in my life. It's just like, yeah, you actually, you learn a couple of dishes, you can cook up a pretty decent meal, and that's nice, on the taste buds and on the belly. And, just like those little things that often go unnoticed, where it's just like, man, I mean, I'm so tired from work, I just don't want to cook. Well, you have that option, but I mean, how cool is it that you can whip something up if you did have the energy to? And why don't you lean towards that rather than leaning towards that I'm so tired that I don't want to? Just lean towards where it's just like, hey, if I get up the energy, I totally could, and that's pretty neat. So, and that's, I don't know why, but that's just a big thing that I think is really important. That my 20s, I basically was really good at whipping up prepackaged food. I could take a bag of rice and a bag of pre-sorted vegetables and you know some kind of meat and some kind of sauce, and kind of throw them together, and it'd be pretty tasty. But it'd be edible. I mean, you eat it and you'd just be like, yeah, sprinkle a little cheese on it, and this actually would be a pretty yummy meal. And now to the point where it's just like, oh no, I can make a roux, throw some extra stuff on that, and it's actually really hearty. And so, I feel like learning how to cook is so important. You get rid of a lot of the sodium. Most of the problem with processed foods is not just the fact that it's been processed to death. So by the time you get to the other end, I mean, there's almost no vitamins left in it. Like somebody read, I read somebody saying it's just like Don't boil your broccoli, roast your broccoli. It keeps, so much more of the flavor and vitamins, in there. Obviously, that's not the same as like, if you make a stew with the broccoli, then, hopefully that's in the broth. I don't know. I don't know if you lose some of the vitamins in the breakdown, but all I'm saying is that, like when you process, one of the downsides is that you lose a lot of the nutrition from it, but also it seems like in almost every step of the process, salt had been added. And, um, I know there's a lot of people that would disagree with me, that are saltaholics, but I honestly feel like doesn't seem to be much reason at all to put any salt in any dish that you make, and then if you finish the dish and then you still want to, you can sprinkle some on top. I feel like it's the same exact experience as if you cooked if you cooked like 10 times the amount of salt during the cooking process as the tenth of that you would sprinkle on top. I feel like you get the same taste. So why not just like, cut out all the sodium, and then if you taste it and you're like, I could use a little bit. Now that pinch is all the salt that's in there, besides what naturally comes in the food anyway. I mean, you actually get a lot of sodium. I didn't realize that. Even if you didn't put salt on top of your veggies, a lot of the veggies actually did have salt in them already, and it's cumulative effect. It'd be pretty hard for you to eat the amount that keeps you at a healthy weight and that you would get a salt deficiency. Because you actually can get, it's always a new study. There's always something new that you find out where it's just like, oh, I thought this was good for me, it's bad for me. Oh, I thought this was bad for me, it's good for me. Like that whole conspiracy about like, sugars versus fats. And it's just like sugar is a billion times worse for you than fat. There's no reason why you should have to do, again, I'm not a nutritionist, but, it's like from what I've noticed and read, it's just like there's no reason that you should need to eat margarine instead of regular butter. Regular butter is completely fine, and it's great, and it's not, all this processed, like, stuff. But maybe margarine versus butter is a bad example. But all I'm saying is that I thought that too much salt could absolutely freaking kill you. Like Chappelle had that joke where it's just like, number one killer of black guys is salt. Um, so it's the same thing where it's just like I thought too much salt was a bad thing. As much salt as I could possibly cut out of my diet, I thought I was doing a good thing, and then it comes to find out, oh, actually, if you have too little salt in your diet, that can also lead to cumulative problems. And it's just like, well, then I don't know what to do anymore. I can't win. But from what I understand, it's like it'd be very difficult for you to be able to eat enough food to sustain a healthy weight, and yet somehow you manage to not get enough sodium to get by. So, I mean, I'll update you as the research comes, but it's like that's the whole thing with research is I come to find out why, even with the scientific method, it isn't like set in stone once you've seen a result. Like there's always something else going on. Like Neil deGrasse Tyson was on Joe Rogan, and now all this evidence is coming up from the government that we have seen UFOs. And so, Rogan's like, all right, so that now we have proof that there's aliens. And so Tyson's like, no, you're skipping way too many steps. So first of all, they didn't see it; their instruments did. Let's start there. And at first it seems like he's being really nitpicky, but then he explains, well, the whole reason why we know Pluto exists is because of Planet X. Planet X was Neptune was observed by a big observatory, I think, that Neptune wasn't acting the way it should, based on what we know about gravity and the other surrounding planets. So, there must be another planet that's affecting the gravity of Neptune. Let's go looking for it. And in looking for it, they found Pluto. Now, at first, they go, oh, we found Planet X, so they assumed Pluto to be a lot bigger than it was and in a lot smaller of an orbit. And the longer they studied it, the smaller they realized it was until they realized it's not even, I think it's smaller, about the same size as our moon. The reason why it's not a planet anymore is because, first of all, it's not the same size they thought it was anymore. Then they also had to figure out how they're going to classify what makes a planet, what makes, a dwarf planet, and that kind of stuff. Pluto just basically kept on getting smaller and smaller until they were like, oh my god, this thing is actually just like a really small chunk, and definitely not what's affecting Neptune. Keep on looking, they find another one that's even smaller and more far out. I can't remember the name of that one, but finally, they're like, all right, I mean, we could be looking forever. Like, let's just go double check something. So they checked some other stuff, and they realized, oh, that original reading of Neptune acting like it shouldn't was wrong in the first place. And the instruments were off, something was off. Basically, Neptune acts exactly as it should, based on all the planets that we have in the system. There might be some, other ones like Pluto and, the other one that we found, like, doing some weird stuff. But as far as we know, there's not any major planets that are not on the plane that the rest of the planets are on. But we basically knew that Neptune wasn't acting right because, we had a high name, So basically, what he's saying is just like, he will always be skeptical until he has like that, hard in the paint. You can't deny it evidence. And it seemed like he was nitpicky at first, but he was just like, no, 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 I'm just being scientific. It's like we've been fooled in the past by by the and it's not fooled, but it's like we've been mistaken in the past by the most elite of elite. And unfortunately, once you publish something, you're like, hey, we found this result. Then the newspaper publishes it as, hey, this is now the new normal. And then, more research goes into it. And it's just like, oh, no, we got that result once and we found out what the factor was. That is not the new normal. And it's just this whole thing where, I forget why I initially was saying that. But, no, it's completely lost. But yeah. Oh, the food thing. So, as far as I know, you're probably not going to have a salt deficiency, as far as I know. But, again, this is just something that I just happened to read where I'm like, oh, come on, I was doing so good with the sodium. So, I'll keep you updated if I find anything new. But, I mean, as far as listening to anything from me, I'll say it in any of my advice episodes. And I don't feel like I should have to in one of these ones, because this is literally so obvious that it's me ranting at the camera. But what the heck, I'll do it anyway. I'm obviously not an expert. I'm just a guy that reads stuff, regurgitates it onto the screen, because I find it interesting, and I think that if you haven't heard about it, then you might find it interesting too. But by all means, do not cite me as a source. All right, if you're writing a paper, I'm not, a source to be cited. Kind of like how Wikipedia. Don't cite Wikipedia because those are people literally updating it on. It could literally be anybody that wants to update it on a whim. Don't cite Wikipedia. Cite the source that Wikipedia cites. So as soon as you actually hear me say go to this website, then you'll know that oh my god, this might actually be genuinely true. But still check that website out, not my stupid face. So anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you. Awkward pause while I do the click clicks.